American society. David Horowitz is an activist and writer and editor-in-chief of the online publication Front Page Magazine. His 2007 program on American campuses called Islamofascism Awareness Week continues this autumn under a new banner, Stop the Jihad on Campus. And Mr. Horowitz is the author of numerous books, including Unholy Alliance, Radical Islam and the American Left, which argues that liberals are supporting, whether intentionally or not, what he calls Islamic terrorism. Joining me with a different perspective is Dr. Hussein Ibish, who heads the Foundation for Arab American Leadership and is a senior fellow at the American Task Force on Palestine, an advocacy group based here in Washington, D.C. So on this show we examine what American values represent today while there is a so-called war on terror. Don't forget you can join us with your comments. Mr. Horowitz, thank you very much for being on the show. And if I could start by asking you, pointing out you're a pretty aggressive campaigner on what against what you perceive to be threats to American society and security. You seem to see, according to a lot of people, an enemy everywhere. And the common thread in all your projects, Discover the Network, Students for Academic Freedom, Jihad Watch, and Stop the Jihad on Campus, seems to be fear of a threat. So could I ask you, what do you think Americans have to fear?
Well, first of all, I certainly don't take the view that everybody who is a dissenter or a critic is a danger. American democracy thrives on different viewpoints. However, I spent 25 years in the American left, whose agendas are definitely to destroy this country. The American left wanted us to lose the Cold War with the Soviets, and it wants us to lose the war on terror. So I don't make any apologies for that. My campaign, Stop the Jihad on Campus, is directed at the Muslim Students Association, which pretends to be a religious organization representing all Muslims, but in fact is an arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. It was created by the Muslim Brotherhood. It's supportive of the agendas of the Muslim Brotherhood, which means Hamas and Hezbollah. I've had many encounters with them, and I know that my views of this are correct. If they want to come out and condemn Hamas and condemn Hezbollah as genocidal terrorist organizations, then I will embrace them. Okay. But until that happens, I'm going to conduct my campaign to make people aware of what their real agendas are.
Dr. Ibish, I know, of course, you and Mr. Horowitz have had this debate out a few times. What do you feel Americans should be afraid of?
Well, I think that there are lots of things to be concerned about in this world. Obviously, there are people who want to harm the United States, whether they're extremists who have some connection to the Muslim world or who are Muslim fanatics. They exist. There's also right-wing and left-wing extremists in the United States. There's economic problems, global warming. There's any number of things to be worried about. There are also a great many strengths to the United States. One of the things one ought to include, I think, in the list of things to be worried about is this sort of extreme speech that you get from people not only on the left but also some people on the right. And I think Mr. Horowitz's website is a good example of that. And one of the things that's most striking about Front Page Mag is how much praise you hear in a certain weird way of Osama bin Laden in particular on that site. I mean, think statements like Osama bin Laden is a very good Muslim, a model one, in fact, and one of the most devout in the past 1400 years of Islam. Or more recently, there's this gem, Osama bin Laden is a moderate Muslim. Actually, Osama obeys the Quran of Medina and the Sunnah of Muhammad, so he's moderate, pious, Medinan Muslim. The jihadists of September 11, 2001 were all moderate Medinan Muslims. They were not extremists or radicals. So in any other context, you would have to say that's high praise for Osama bin Laden, unless, of course, you already agree that describing someone as a good Muslim or a pious Muslim is in itself a pejorative. Now, however you slice this stuff is very bad for our country. It's very bad for our society. It's bad for our culture and discourse. So I think there are a lot of things to be worried about, and one of them is wild rhetoric like this.
Well, Mr. Horowitz, could I ask you to explain that contradiction Dr. Ibish has pointed out? Sorry, sir. I was also going to ask you I was going to ask you, sir, also what limits are there to what can and can't be done in the interests of security when it comes to civil rights and civil liberties?
That's a good question. Look, my website publishes thousands of articles a year, and I'm sure of which I read a very small percentage. And I'm sure there are statements by various authors. I'm sure Al-Jazeera has had many people on, including myself, that don't agree with its agendas. So I'm not going to defend these snippets that are taken out. People are welcome to go to frontpagemagazine.com and judge for themselves.
I think that's a good idea.
Fine. Look, there's a possibility always that people will react, particularly when a country is attacked, as we have been, in an extreme way. They want to get rid of the problem. So, for example, deport everybody that disagrees with me who came from a foreign country. I oppose that. I'm a very tolerant and a very ecumenical person, and I've laid down the conditions by which the Muslim Students Association can, take itself out of my line of fire, and that is condemn Hamas and Hezbollah. Hamas was created by the same organization that created the Muslim Students Association, and the Muslim Student Association leaders, whom I have confronted on college campuses because they come to my events, refuse point blank to condemn the genocidal statements of, for example, Hassan Nasrallah, who's asked Jews like myself to gather in Israel so he won't have to hunt us down worldwide. I cannot get a Muslim Students Association leader to condemn that statement. I hope that Hussein Ibish would condemn it.
Oh, I'd be happy. I'd be happy to.
Okay.
As anyone who follows my writings will know that I've been increasingly and quite strongly critical of those organizations.
Well,
and
that's
other
fine.
groups.
Then
Wait. No. But there's a problem with your whole project here, with your effort to get Muslim groups to say what you want them to say, the way you want them to say it. There's two angles to it. One is it's a gotcha game. It's a game of when are you going to stop beating your wife? In other words, if they answered or signed on to your language, particularly, they'd be accepting all of your premises, and I think it's ludicrous to expect them to do that. Although I certainly think moderate, constructive, reasonable rhetoric is the order of the day. The other problem is that when you try to get people to be responsible when, in some cases, I agree, some of the student groups, especially on the West Coast, and I wrote about this in The Guardian a couple of weeks ago, have invited intolerant, bigoted, biased speakers that they really shouldn't be inviting at all. If you approach them from a constructive point of view, you might be able to make some progress. But if you say things like, on your website continuously says things like there is no such thing as moderate Islam, the war on terror is not a problem of radicals, it's Islam in general, all Muslims are bad. Or in your case, by the way, on Hamas and Hezbollah, but particularly on Hamas, you seem to call for the deportation of Palestinians from the West Bank and Gaza. I mean, you said the other day on your blog that Israel had every right to annex the West Bank and Gaza with no complaint from the so-called Palestinians. You also seem to deny that there is such a thing as Palestinians or any of the Arab states. Israel should have done just that and expelled the Arab aggressors from the Gaza and the West Bank. Now, when you have that kind of record and you approach people to say, well, why don't we come together for a reasonable statement, they're going to tell you to get lost. I mean, obviously.
Look, I was saying, you got to stop lying about my site.
I just read from your blog verbatim.
And you can't filibuster me either.
Go ahead.
The fact is that I've always said there are a lot of moderate Muslims. They're just pretty silent these days. I have not demanded that the Muslim Students Association adopt my language. All I've asked is that they condemn Hamas, and they refuse to do it. I've asked them to repudiate the Hadith, which calls for the extermination of the Jews. This is not complex. So the reality is that they're not condemning Hamas because they support Hamas.
Well, let's do one thing. Mr. Horowitz, let's get in. We've got a caller from Algeria holding on the line. He's been on for a while, so let's get Mohammed in with a comment or question. We'd like to get our viewers' opinions on this as well. Mohammed, what would you like to say?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Go ahead.
Hello, my question goes direct to the Washington. My question goes direct to the Washington Hussein, or what do you call it?
Okay. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm talking of Osama bin Laden. He says he's a Muslim and is not an extremist. He's fighting America against terrorism. So there are a lot of Muslims in Africa. They are all blacks. Why don't Arabs take care of the Muslim or try to help them in any way.
Okay.
They are the only Americans or
Mohammed?
Europeans that
Fine.
that's
Okay, Mohammed, that's an interesting point, Mohammed. Let's get Dr. Ibish to answer that.
I think it's an excellent point. I mean, I'm not sure exactly. I mean, if the caller was trying to say that...
That last bit, certainly, he was saying that, why is it that the Arabs don't look after, for example, Africans and
they certainly
do?
should do more. I mean, there's no question. The entire international community, and it does fall to the Arab states, particularly the oil exporting states, do more for the entire developing world. And I think especially dealing with the AIDS crisis in Africa and other issues in Africa, it's beholden on them. And no one should be supporting, by the way, Omar Bashir in this business of being indicted. I mean, this is a very good example of a useful sort of criminal pursuit, in my opinion. I mean, people should not be immune from war crimes because they're heads of state, even if they're heads of smaller states. That's all reasonable. I think it's pretty clear, and it's accepted virtually everywhere in the Arab and Islamic world, that Mr. bin Laden is an extremist and a murderer, and I think that's an overall consensus at this point.